This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the new Prologue EV, there's a lot that could impress you about it. There's the class-leading passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Ampire. Hey babies, hey babies, hey babies, hey babies. Hi everyone. We did not, Cal and I did not, if you're watching this on YouTube, did not message each other to wear Commanders gear today. But actually, Callo went old school there. Callo's wearing Redskins gear, Super Bowl hat. I'm going full new school, as you know. I'm not going to wear any Redskins stuff. But if you look behind me, you might see a couple things that harken the good old days. But you're feeling it, huh, Callo? Feeling it?
Well, as you know, I've dropped a lot of weight in the last year, and I went through some of my things I had stored, and it's getting colder out. And so I found a couple of items that I can wear again, and that includes a Redskins pullover. So why not? Why not break it out at this point?
And then last night you went on Toothpicks podcast?
Yes, right. Yes.
We're all I've been getting a lot of invitations too these days. We're all very popular. I apologize in advance to any of you that are watching this that I've said no to you. It's just I've had too many things on my plate, and I'm sorry. If you want to hear what I have to say, you're going to have to listen to it here in general. I will do certain people's shows at certain times, but during the season, I appreciate the attention, but I'm still busy right now. But you do you, Callo, if you want to talk to Cal, if you want to talk Toothpick all night.
I've been on 2 or 3 podcasts, and all 3 times it's been, oh yeah, Mike works with the voice of the team. Tell us what you know, like that. So I'm getting it by proximity from you. So yeah, that's what's happening.
Very popular. Here. I know, very popular these days. I know. All of a sudden, very popular these days. They put a camera in the booth, and the team starts winning, and I'm very popular these days. So
I will say, I think yesterday's was my favorite one in terms of the team and you. I sent it to you where it was. Because I mean, I don't think you were going to talk about this, but it's Dan Quinn praising all the players as they're coming off the field, and it's spliced with your Miami touchdown.
Yeah.
But it's did you notice Quinn calling everybody a wolf?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Wolf season. Let's perk up a little bit.
We're not subtweeting everybody. That's not what's happening right now. Like Josh Harris doesn't have a burner phone, and he's putting out Red Wolves stuff on Twitter. I like Red Wolves. I heard Josh Harris likes Red Wolves. Like that's not happening right now.
Just saying.
Just so you know, like the name thing isn't happening, and it's not happening for a while, and it's not even on the table right now. So, and I wonder how we've felt this way for a long time. What if they win as the Commanders? How are you going to feel about that? Bet the name sounds a lot better to you if they're going to be winning. So that's where we're at. And for the people who are like, bring back Redskins, guys, those days are over. I mean, like, that's not happening. No matter what, that's not happening.
Yes, correct. Exactly. So.
Okay. I'd like to do a little review because I actually went through the game the other day. This is 2 weeks in a row now. I'm still in kind of disbelief because I just can't believe how well the team is playing across the board. And I know that sounds unbelievably homerish. And if I was doing skin tangibles, I would just be like drawing all over the Washington side saying they're better at everything because right now they are. Like that's the, I don't know that it's this is a week-to-week league and things are going to change. And call me in a couple months if they're actually performing at this level, because if they are, they're going to be like 10-2, like if that's what they're going to do, which, I can't possibly anticipate that that's what they're going to be, but the level of play that they're playing at now in such a short period of time is really astounding. When you go and watch, especially the last 2 weeks, it's just reaffirmed my feeling. I don't think anybody's playing better than them right now in the NFL across the board. And I mean, if you think that's crazy to say, well, they've won 4 in a row. They boat raced 2 teams and you're like, oh, that's Arizona. Okay. Let's see. They were on a short week, never came home, went out west. Arizona almost won in Buffalo, killed the Rams, and just won in San Francisco. So don't tell me that that's not, and they won by 28. So don't tell me that's not an impressive win. And I'll hear you on Cleveland's offense. They were awful coming in, and they were really, really bad the other day. And in a couple ways, Deshaun made some laughably bad decisions. Like when you rewatch, you're like, well, I don't even know what he was thinking on some of this stuff that derailed a couple of their drives. But largely the defense played maybe its best game, probably its best game of the season, albeit against an offense that's really messed up. I mean, but that's what you're supposed to do in the NFL, is take advantage of these teams. And I think the thing that really stands out to me most is it's up and down the roster. It's not one or two guys. Like, I know that Jaden's getting a tremendous amount of attention, and it's deserved because he's so far ahead of the curve, just metrically, what he's doing, the eye test, everything looks so smooth to him. I'm going to point out a couple plays that were the Superman plays that, you know, like he's had a few of them now where there are these pivotal moments in games that he just comes through in a clutch way that's almost inexplicable, and they're all come down to his instincts. And I'll get over to those in a minute, but I want to credit the whole team at this point, because Nick Bellore, who's been around the league forever, comes here, end of camp, didn't even practice with the team. I know he'd worked with Larry Izzo in Seattle, comes here. He's like a bullet on these kickoff returns. They've had 14 different players make tackles on special teams. That's a humongous number. It means everybody's involved. Go watch Luke McCaffrey blocking on the edge over and over, or how many times they asked him to chip Myles Garrett and he did it perfectly. Like, there's a reason why Myles Garrett did not make the stat sheet. Austin Eckler making a play, blocking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, then blocking downfield when he does his chip and goes downfield, and I think was supposed to be open, but Jaden has to vacate. Well, he's still blocking down the field. DQ's bringing up Olamide Zaccheaus, who ran 80 yards down the field to end up recovering a fumble. He was running in motion in the opposite direction of the play and ran down anyway. Like, I think these are all-time hustle plays. Go watch Cosme, Biotish, Allegretti, even Wiley at times, the blocking on the edge. There was one at the end of the game. The scores not in jeopardy. Mariota and group are out there. And on a 3rd and 11, they hand off to Jeremy McNichols, and he cuts off the left side. Nobody's going to remember this because the game was over. They were just running clock at this point. 3rd and 11, they hand it off. They run like an edge rush play. Bryson Tremaine is blocking somebody down the field. The guy's been on the practice squad through the first 4 games, comes up, and he makes a key block. Like, it's up and down the roster. If guys 40 through 45 that are going to be up on game day are making these types of plays, then you know you got something going. And I haven't seen this team play like this in a very, very, very long time. And I think that's what is so promising about it. Like, the quarterback play is astounding, and it's worth really highlighting, but it's the whole team. He's not willing them to victory. It's a whole team thing. And it really, left and right, you watch the film, and I almost, this is why it's real. Like, this is why it's not fake. This is why it has staying power. These guys are playing collectively like I haven't seen this franchise play in a very long time.
No, I think last week we started bringing out the comparison to 2005, the Joe Gibbs 2.0 team, where he had a year under his belt, had Brunell. They actually didn't have that great of a roster, but it was the chemistry that really won them 10 games, and they won a playoff game that year. That's the comparison that I make this to the last time that they were playing like this, right? I don't think there's been a year pretty much since then that they did that. To your point, too, of the roster, I think we're also finding out it not only were the moves that Adam Peters made, it's the moves he didn't make, too. Remember it got to be like, week 2, week 3 of training camp, and everyone was freaking out because they're like, they have the number 1 waiver wire and they're not picking anyone up. He didn't pick anyone up until the end. And in fact, he didn't use a waiver wire. He signed Noah Brown, in that first day or second day, whenever he was cut. And then, as you said, he added the special teamer that his name is escaping me, my name or my brain right now, but Bellore, yeah. Exactly. And it's now becoming, it's almost like Peters, even the moves he didn't make to get some of these other guys are filling out the roster in a way that we didn't even anticipate.
The decision-making is beyond validated. Like, Dan Quinn's the coach of the year right now. Adam Peters is GM of the year right now. Jaden Daniels is the rookie of the year for sure, and maybe more if this continues. And, I think they've got multiple Pro Bowlers and some that probably kind of came out of nowhere. Like Tyler Biotish in Dallas, a very good player. He's having an Pro Bowl all-pro season right now. And I know it's like really early, but it's just, it's unbelievable to watch. And it just defies really all historic precedent. I think that's the part that really stands out about it. It's when you bring in a whole new staff and a whole new front office and 30 plus new players, it's baked in that you're going to be really up and down. And the downs seem to be behind them after week 2. Like that's what's ridiculous about it. Now, like, there's no chance that they could continue playing like this every week on this level. I don't think. And then if you're like, well, they could just get better. I suppose. What are they going to start winning 50-7? What are we talking about here? Like, they just won 42-14 and 34-13. What's better? Like, they're going to go to Baltimore and win by 48? Like, what are we talking about here? So it's gonna come back to the mean, I would think, but it's beyond expectation. And I can't credit all of them enough. They've been right at just about every turn. They're really right about the receivers. You keep telling us, like, we don't need the secondary one. Could they use another one that could take the top off? Yeah, I think so. But, like, they're good there. Do they need more offensive linemen? I thought for sure. In fact, I thought they might need 2 tackles, not 1. No, they don't need that right now. Do they need another edge rusher? Well, I don't know. 11 sacks after the last 2 weeks. I'm not totally sure that they definitively have to go get one. Corner still feels like somewhat of a void to me, but they held Cleveland to 38 yards last week. So, like, at every turn, they didn't spend any huge money on anybody except for Cosme, who they re-signed, and go watch how he's playing.
Yep.
And then they didn't give any long-term to anybody. It's really remarkable. I mean, like I said yesterday, this is what you make a movie out of. Like, because it doesn't really make any sense that it's happening this quickly and this fast. They're coming together in this way. He talks about, like, all the coaches talk about building culture and building chemistry. It's on display right in front of you that what you can do in a short period of time. Nobody's playing better than them collectively in the NFL. Will it last? I don't know. Are they going to lose? Yeah, eventually. And maybe even this weekend. That's a really good team that they're playing. But I don't have enough laudatory words for what they're doing at this point. And I'm trying not to be too homerish about the whole thing, but I don't think I'm being biased about this. Like, go watch them play and go watch everybody else and tell me they're not playing better than anybody else in the league right now, because they are. They are.
No, this one settles into like a couple of different like subcategories for me. It goes on, our old mantra of, sometimes it doesn't matter, who you're playing, it's when you play them, right? Well, like right now, the Commanders are the when, right? You don't want to play them.
You don't want to play them right now. Baltimore's going to find that out. You don't want to play them right now.
Right, which leads me into you and I both know this, that no matter how good your team is, it is hard to be this good for now, not 16, 17 games in a row. And so that's where I've kind of landed on is what's going to derail this, or where are there bumps in the road going to become? Does it become the film finally comes out on Jaden and some defensive coordinator figures it out and then they have to react to that, which I don't know if that's going to happen, anytime soon, but I'm just throwing it out there because that's where I've landed now is what's going to derail them. And I just haven't figured that out yet.
Here's where the one adjustment I expect to occur with Jaden. You can't contain him if he gets out on the edge, and he especially likes to run to the right, he's really adept at juking people, and even in pressure situations, juking people. I'll tell you about the 2 plays that really, really stood out to me that are just, they're exemplary, special, and the type of plays that only elite players make. And which is why I think, if this is what the baseline is for him, I don't know what's coming down the road, but here's what I would expect. And I would think that defensive coordinators are going to do this. You can't bring your edge rushers crashing off the edge on him anymore. I think you have to set an edge on him and force him to either run from the pocket or throw from the pocket and hope to get pressure up the middle, because I've seen this now too many times. Like, he'll juke out Pro Bowl caliber. He did it to JOK the other day. He'll juke Pro Bowl caliber players, and then he's gone. And then it looks effortless and it's smooth. I expect now the wide edge rushers to go upfield and stop. And so that he just can't get to the outside. So, because the second he sees someone taking an angle towards him, he jukes him out, and then he's gone. They can't bring him down. He apparently is stronger than he looks, and everyone's like, oh, he's thin and everything. How many times has he gotten out of arm tackles? One of them, that was Zadarius Smith that he ran out of a tackle of to throw that bomb to Terry McLaurin the other day. So that's what I think is going to happen, that you're going to see the edge rushers actually go upfield and stop, almost like you're not running by us, we're watching you, instead of I'm going to come at you, and see if he either escapes through the pocket or throws from the pocket. And this is where, he's picked every lock so far, but if I were to guess, that's what I think is going to happen, because once he gets to the outside, he's killing people. And it's not like just getting first downs. It's 30-yard runs. Like, you just can't have that. So I think that's what I think is going to happen. Let me bring up the two plays, though, that really, really, really stood out. One is the 4th and 3 play. Okay. So this is the one where he ran for 30 yards down the field. So it's 4th and 3. They're going for it. They're at their own 40-yard line. It's only 7-3 at this point, right? So it's a tight game. Cleveland's offense hasn't done much, but it's not like it was out of hand yet. Like, the game's close, and the field position, if you don't make it, that's a questionable decision. If you don't make it 4th and 3 at the 40, like that's a questionable decision. Yeah, I get it. You can't really kick or you don't want to kick from there. But the way Cleveland's offense was going, I would make an argument that you punt and you just, Tressway pins them deep and try to get the ball back, better field position. No, this is an aggressive offense, confident offense. So I get that. But 4th and 3 is that's no easy make. They drop back. I don't know what the play is, but Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah comes off the edge, gets a tiny chip block from Eckler, who, springs out, but he's moving so fast that Jaden has to make a decision. How many times have you seen a quarterback force the throw there?
Quite a bit. Often.
He didn't. Yeah. He didn't do it. He saw him coming, immediately. This is why I said, like, it's his instincts that are outrageous. He doesn't force a throw. He doesn't get happy feet. He isn't, there's nothing about this that's like bothersome to him. He just takes one step, jukes him, goes out to the right, and then Eckler recognizes this and is blocking for him down the field. This team is on some kind of like mind wavelength that is very hard to describe right now. Like, how many times? What the 4th down again in the Cincinnati game was a throw to Luke McCaffrey, who was just running across the field and was the 3rd target in it, and was actually in the same space as another receiver. Like, I wouldn't even think he was supposed to be there when they threw that pass to him. The pass in Cincinnati to McLaurin, McCaffrey and Ertz weren't set and weren't sure what the play was when they did it. That play was one of the epitomes of, oh my God, like, this guy's on a different level, because a million times you'll see the quarterback, they got to run this play. It's 4th and 3. I've got it. This is my first read. This is where I'm going to put the ball. I'm now under pressure. Well, I'm just going to force it there. Incomplete pass. A million times out of a million times. Not this guy. Then the other one is at the end of the half. And it isn't even the throw to Brown. It's the play before. So they've got a 3rd down and 3. He, same thing, like, gets a lot of pressure, beats the pressure, gets off the edge, runs out of bounds. And then this is now the famous, you see him say something to Kingsbury as he's walking back to the huddle, okay, which is now the take a shot to De'Ami Brown. Jaden Daniels doesn't know what defense Cleveland's going to line up in. It's like he's omniscient and knew exactly what the play was before he even got back to the huddle or the line of scrimmage. And he was right. So not only does he make this ridiculously athletic play to extend a drive, he knew exactly what the next play call would be, and he was correct. To De'Ami Brown, who hadn't been targeted the entire game. That is omniscient. It's ridiculous. It's 2 steps ahead. It's chess master Bobby Fischer stuff. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. And this is why I'm like, I can't say enough incredible things about what they're doing, because he is doing these crazy Superman things. The team is playing like their hair's on. They're all Frankie Louvu now. Everybody, even the guys who are barely getting opportunities, Browns catching 41-yard touchdown passes, blocking down the field. Bryson Tremaine comes in, and in a game that's over, is blocking people 10 yards downfield to make sure Jeremy McNichols, who has scored 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks when he had 1 in his career 3 years ago, can get a first down. It's absurd. Like, it is. It's absurd. And it's incredible. It's incredible to watch. And Dan and Joe Witt and Kingsbury and Peters and all of them and all the players deserve so much credit for what they're doing right now. And if it doesn't last, it doesn't last. So I'll go back to your point. We need to enjoy this. This team hasn't played like this in 30 years. And it's incredible to watch, really.
I feel like I need to take that whole 5-minute rant and put it, Photoshop you into a WWE ring of you cutting a promo of why this team is better than just about everyone else. Because I think you hit every nail on the head. It's yes, they are basically a whole unit right now. I think it's the best way to describe it, and it's from the top down. They're all on the same page. This is why I still go back to maybe the most important move of the offseason was saying, Jahan Dotson, you don't want to play hard or you don't want to block down field. It's cool. We'll trade you to a division rival. And you're seeing it right now that tone was set. What was that, 3 weeks in? They traded him before the last preseason game or after the last preseason game? I forget which one. I think it was in between the third and the fourth, wasn't it? I don't even think he was here for
before the cut down day.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is I actually think this team had that established and it was, okay, who's not on board? And when you get to say that, 4 months into your tenure, I mean, that tells you that is an actual culture change overnight. I mean, that's what I think that's what's blowing everyone's mind here is because how many different head coaches or GMs did we get here in Washington? And it was, oh, they just want to change the culture. And it was like, all right, sure, pal. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to do that. And now it's happened, but it's not only happened, it's happened.
Actually happened.
It's happened overnight, essentially. That's the ridiculous part. It's happened overnight. And they're not just good. They're historically good. And I keep going back to this point too. This team was really good for 15 straight years, right? The Joe Gibbs years were amazing. They aren't the Browns or the Lions or the Cardinals or a team that is historically bad. They're so good. They're shattering records when they were a dynasty. That's what I think is blowing my mind the most more than anything. It's not like they were a crappy franchise and are breaking numbers that aren't hard to break. They're breaking insane numbers. The 3 touchdown one that flashed the other day. It's the first time in franchise history that they ran for 3 touchdowns, 3 games in a row, I think it was. And all I'm thinking is the Hogs in Rigo never did that, or the Hogs in anyone never did that. It's mind-blowing at this point, the stats that they're starting to throw out there.
Yeah, I like the WWE thing. You can't see me. You can't see me.
If you smell what Jaden's cooking.
You smell what Bram the Rock is cooking. All right. Let me take a quick break. If you are watching on YouTube, you won't see this because I taped an audio interview with the voice of the Capitals, John Walton, yesterday. So for the radio and for the podcast, you'll hear from the voice of the Caps, John Walton, as we get set for the start of the NHL season here. Come watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Cap.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See detail.
Prime Big Deal Days is here with exclusive savings just for Prime members.
Woohoo!
Involuntary deal squeals can happen, like the deal on travel mug squeal. The deal on a new blender squeal. Yeah! Or the classic deal on electric toothbrushes squeal.
Oh, yeah! Woo!
Save big on electronics, fashion, and more this Prime Big Deal Days. On now.
Let me welcome in the play-by-play voice of the Washington Capitals as hockey season is here. Capitals, one of the late starters when the NHL season opens this week. They get going this weekend against the Devils, and it's a very, very new team. Hey, John, how are you?
I am good, Bram. Good to be with you.
It's good to be with you, too. All right, I've been a delinquent friend. We've texted, but we haven't spoken since this summer. So let me do the real friend thing first before we get into the team and just ask, because everybody knows you had a rough summer. You had a cancer diagnosis, and you have beaten it, as far as I can tell, right? Beaten it? Is that correct? Is that the right way to put it at this point?
Yeah, I think so. I hope so. It was contained and had not spread. And although it was sizable and it was scary, and the process of learning you have it in a few days where you don't know how serious it is, it's only about 4 days, but they were 4 tough days where you don't know how bad this is going to be. and it looked optimistically okay. And then coming through the surgery was good news. So yeah, it's a lot of regular checkups moving forward, but yeah, I'm in pretty good shape. I'm certainly thrilled to be back at it work-wise and being able to, and not having to worry about chemo or radiation or anything like that. The surgery took care of it. So,
all right.
Very, very, very happy.
We typically do an annual dinner. You don't have any diet restrictions, right? Because I like pizza, and I like that we get pizza, so we get to keep doing that. Is that right?
We absolutely keep, yes,
right.
Yes. There is no, life would not be worth, it wouldn't even be worth living if you can't have pizza. So yeah, no, we're pizza good, no problem.
All right. And then we just get into the Caps, and then I'll let the health stuff go. What does the job mean to you now in light of what happened over the summer? Because I'm not surprised actually being in a position like you are. And I know it's such a privileged position to be in. When you have something like this, to know that you're going to get back to something like that. I wonder if it's put any perspective on being the voice of the Capitals for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I talked about those 4 days. I mean, you don't know what the answer is going to be. Are you going to find out that, hey, we don't think you're going to make it, or, you can get through it, but boy, this is going to be tough. And, maybe you can't work. Maybe you're not going to be able to do what you do. And, just getting back in the booth for the first preseason game, and it was guys that aren't going to play for the Flyers and guys that aren't going to play for the Caps. But, for me, just to be able to put the headset back on, to be back in the booth, to be back in the arena. I mean, Kenny and I have been together for 14 years now, and just to be able to sit down next to him and just to be able to, when the door shuts, it's our playground, right? I mean, you know how it is.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what's going on in your life, it's, this is what we enjoy, and the outside world is the outside world. So, yeah, I mean, it means a whole hell of a lot, and just to be able to have that, that opportunity just to get back in there was just the best.
All right, let's get into the team a little bit here. We're close to turning a page, right? Nick Backstrom obviously isn't going to play. TJ Oshie is on long-term IR. His contract's going to run out after this year. This feels like we're still on record watch, obviously, and there's still some of the old hats that are skating around out there. But where are we in your mind in like the transitional period of the old to new Capitals?
I think we're well on our way to the new, and it's funny, with alumni coming in for the opener, and the list, because it's the 50th anniversary, is the longest and best I think anybody's seen. And the guys that are coming back that I've had now, like Brouwer and Alsner, and the guys in green, and it's like, man, like when did we get to here? And it goes so quickly. And I think it's just an illustration of, with the stuff on the ice right now, is, we're through a lot of it. And I think, there's obviously some sadness that comes with losing guys like Nick and TJ, who was, I mean, in my mind, the greatest trade outside of the Langway deal. I don't think there's a better trade in team history than what Brian McClellan pulled off to bring TJ here, because they don't win without him. And what he brought is, man, I mean, you can't even measure it. So losing these pieces are seismic. I mean, they're not just losing good players. And you look at what happened in the offseason, you bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois. I think it was a great move. I think you look at a guy like Mangiapane, who essentially is TJ's spot and, same kind of player potentially. And I think that's, something we're looking forward to. And inside, I think this team has more goals. Defensively, I think they're pretty sound. But I think that transition of a D-core that is getting Matt Roy, getting Jacob Chychrun, and, Carlson is, now that he's more than 1,000 games, obviously he's well into the back nine here. So kind of transitioning on defense to what's next, I think we've seen it. I think up front, there's still a little more coming. But, obviously as long as Alex is here, they're going to make the best effort to get guys that can get him the puck to get to 900 goals here. And hopefully along the way, we're talking about postseason hockey again come springtime.
All right, let me ask you about Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's a big move. And he's got a lot of money and a lot of years left on a contract. And I'm aware of how good of a player he is, but when you've moved around this much at his age and a team moves away from you after they sign you to a deal like that, it's a red flag. So what have you seen from him so far in a Washington uniform?
You know, it's funny. I talked to him a long time today, and I've gotten to know him a little bit through camp. And, you know, I think a lot of the circumstances, you know, it's funny. A lot of people in Columbus, you know, there was a shift that he took off in Columbus, and he was playing for John Tortorella at the time. And John doesn't tolerate that at all. And it benched him. And, you know, there was a little bit of short-term animosity there. And Columbus saw an opportunity to bring in another key piece in the time. And Patrick Laine, it was a big to-do at the time of, you know, two good players, one going one way and one going the other, that they thought was a better fit. Winnipeg, he just, you know, there was a locker room in turmoil, and there was a little bit of that in LA too. And I think in LA, he got kind of caught up in the crosshairs of, you know, he was told one thing where he was going to be a top six forward, and he never really put him there. And they had a coaching change in the middle, and it just wasn't the fit that I think player and team were both looking for. So why does it work in Washington? And I think it will. And I think the reason why is this has been an organization that, you know, they even go into guys like Brett Connolly where, you know, it may not have worked out one place, but, you know, the team philosophy and the acceptance and the leadership group of this team, whether it be Alex or Tom Wilson or John Carlson, you know, guys come here. Logan Thompson was just saying it earlier in camp. You know, you're welcomed here. And I think he feels that. I think he really wants to be a part of not only, you know, the part of his career. I say, hey, listen, I am a good player and I'm going to show you, but also the opportunity to be a full-time, hey, you're a top six forward. You better believe it. You're going to be playing a lot with Alex Ovechkin this year. You're going to be playing on the number one power play this year. We love you. We want you here. And I think that love goes a long way. And I think he feels that. And I really believe that, you know, I'm not saying he's going to get 100 points, but I mean, if you can get 70 points out of him and 70 points out of Strome, now that's a pretty good 1-2 punch up front. And a third line, if Hendrix Lapierre gets even 30-40, you're looking at a much better goals per game than this team had last year. Granted, you've got a loss, you were 31st, but I really believe that, you know, two plus goals a game gets to be 3 goals a game. And with the D and goaltending you have, you're going to win a lot of hockey games.
Yeah. I don't want to focus specifically on him much, but I do want to question for you really is chemistry, which I think that this team had an incredible amount of through all of those really great years. And they have really great Hall of Fame level players on the team. And some are still here and some aren't. And this shift is involving bringing in guys who have very large contracts that haven't been here. So are there any level of concerns about that this is a team that has portrayed and shown a tremendous amount of chemistry through the years, but they're kind of turning over to some high-priced players that haven't been here? So I wonder how you kind of think about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they're moving forward, and I guess I would go back to 2 years ago where this team started selling off some pieces, right? Because of the deadline, they weren't where they wanted to be, and Hathaway and Orlov leave, and, you know, even last year, you know, and Anthony Mantha, and moving on to be able to build up some of that, you know, what they were calling at the time, the retooling on the fly. It's not a blow it up. It's not a rebuild. It's just trying to, you know, minimize, not do what Detroit did, hanging on at the dance too long. Quite frankly, I think that's what Pittsburgh's doing, where you're just trying to keep the sun in the sky for Crosby, and you keep signing all of these veterans and these free agents that are too old, and you're doing it because you want to make the playoffs, and Pittsburgh's missed. And now it's funny to me that, you know, they were both kind of on the same path for so long, and they've deviated now where the Penguins still think that they're a contender. They're not. They're not going to make the playoffs this year. The Capitals may or may not. I think they will. It's going to be, you know, they're not going to be challenging for a division title, but they're going to be in that conversation. And they've done it by realizing the last 2 years that, hey, we got to move some guys.
Yes.
And we got to bring in some new guys. and we got to stockpile picks, and we've got to embrace. I think that was the genius of Brian McClellan 2 years ago, where you said retool on the fly. And I'm like, well, you moved out a lot of stuff. There wasn't a lot of stuff that even happened that summer. But you saw it with the acquisitions of guys like Dubois, some of these other Chikrin, and some of these other guys that, okay, now you've got some room, and now you've got the ability to do some things. And you got a lot younger. Like, Sandin is young, and Chikrin is young, and Roy is just coming into his own. And I was like, okay, like, this is the decor here for the next half decade. And, Pittsburgh is saddled with so many terrible contracts and I'm just using that as an example of, there's a fork in the road 2 years ago. And I think the path that the Capitals have taken is the right one to be able to say, look, you're not going to go on the dumper here for the next couple of seasons, 5 seasons, 6 seasons like Detroit. And quite frankly, I think Pittsburgh will post Crosby. And you're able to say, look, you may be on the fringe for a while, but you're not going to make that big dip. And you're able to get some guys, sign some guys, and then, forward.
Let me ask you about Alex. So obviously there's an opportunity here potentially to break the record if he has a huge season this year. Let me just start with this. What line is he going to be on? Who's he playing with? How are they looking at that this year?
To start, it's going to be Dylan Strome, who, of course, was right at the top of the team in scoring last year, and Andrew Mangiapane, who's going to be playing on his offside. He's played the left, but he's played the right, too, in his career. And for Mangiapane, it's a guy who had 35 goals 3 years ago. And when Calgary had Johnny Gaudreau, and they were a much better offensive team than they were the last couple of seasons. And I think he was saddled with what was also a bad team that he was on. And I think the opportunity for Mangiapane, I don't expect 30, 35 goals, but if he can even chip in, say, 20 on a line that Alex is able to get 30, 40, and Strome is racking up points, I think there's a lot of potential for offense there. So to begin, yeah, that's where they're going to be.
Okay. And as you think about this year with him, what's the focus on the record? Because it is in sight now. I know obviously it's going to gain a lot of attention outside of the building, but how is the coaching staff and the team kind of thinking about this? Because it would take a vintage season of his that might be a little past where he is right now to actually do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's a lock. I think, it was a weird year last year that he had 8 goals going into the last game before the All-Star break, ended up at 30 again, had a great second half. We've seen it before where he started slow last year. We've also seen him go out and get 10 goals in October. And, I think the first month of the season here is probably going to tell us a lot on where he may be. I think if he has a vintage October, to use your word, I think you're going to have the whole hockey world talking about it. But I really don't think, and a lot of people have asked me and other things that, is that a distraction or anything like that? I think it's a bonding thing. It certainly was for 800. And I think just the moment and the celebration that surrounded that was tremendous. That night in Chicago and everybody's in the room, everybody was downstairs, the whole staff was downstairs in the room and just celebrating him. And the Chicago fans were so great, and they were cheering everything that he was doing that night. And it was a night I won't ever forget. And I think for guys who are here for that, I think that they will feel same. And I think beyond that, Bram, honestly, I don't think it's a focus at all. I think that Alex, if you want to get him to not talk, ask him about the record, because he doesn't want to talk about it. He just wants to go out and do his thing. For the guys, I think it's the same. It's like, hey, listen, he's a great player. We hope he gets it. Coaching staff, same thing. They're in the business of winning hockey games. Okay. And they want to go out, and they've got a tough schedule to begin, and they want to take a run at it.
Let's see. Tom Wilson came off an injury last year, so we turn around and we get a full healthy season, hopefully, out of him this year. What are you expecting out of him this season?
Well, I think you could have a real bounce back, really nice, one of maybe the best offensive seasons he's had in his career. I think that he will be tied, at least to begin, and maybe for a lot of the season, with Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's going to be his centerman. And having a big player, great skater, dynamic ability, skating alongside Tom is interesting. And Connor McMichael had a great preseason, and he's been at center. He's played the wing early in his career. He's going to be back on the left side on that line to begin. He's been great on the PK. He's been really good nose for the net. I thought he was one of the better players in preseason. So if he's able to carry that into the regular year, yeah, that's a great line to watch. I think one of the things, Bram, of just the line combinations, brand new fourth line, third line, maybe a little bit in flux, but just watching these guys who were really together all at camp. There wasn't a lot of horse trading going on. These guys, what Spencer wrote out in July, I think pretty much stuck
Yeah.
together, and there wasn't much change. I'm kind of encouraged by that and see what they're able to do.
All right, last thing. It is, you mentioned the 50th anniversary. So what are you looking forward to this year? I mean, this is going to be a really, it's special when you have these kind of milestone seasons. So what are you looking forward to this year?
I am looking forward to, first and foremost, I think all of the alums that are coming back, the biggest group we've ever had, and they're in for the opener and the alumni game. And Joe B and I are going to call that together, which will be fun. He's going to do half the play-by-play, and I'll do color for him, and then he'll do color for me. And it should be really
cool.
fun. But beyond that, I think, just celebrating some of the different eras of the team. They've got eras nights, and I mean I say the jersey that Craig Laughlin and Ken Sabourin wore is my favorite of all time. I know there anything from the 80s and 90s and, the lowercase, everything stitched on the jersey, things like that, and seeing, just reflecting on history. And the greatest part for me, I think, in 50 years is the best part of Capitals hockey has been really just in the last few years. I mean, being able to finally win the title and be that team that, hey, we are the team that could get it done once, and know what it's like when other teams like Buffalo and Vancouver and teams that are around longer than the Capitals haven't done it. I think the players of this era, at least two and maybe three of these guys are going to the Hall of Fame. And I don't think there's ever been a time in Caps history you can say that. Ovi, obviously. Backstrom, I think for sure. And I think John Carlson, too. I mean, he's able to hang around for a few more years and produce. I think Johnny's a Hall of Famer. So it's an unbelievable time around this team. And even if the era is kind of slipping away and guys are getting older and guys are leaving and aging out, but I'll tell you, it's just a big celebration of the past. And I think in equal measure, we talk about the present, too.
All right, well, just a quick idea. Since you and Joe B are going to share play-by-play duties of the alumni game, how about smoking Al in net for the alumni game? I'd love to see that one. That'd be cool.
I think that's. I think we'd have a story of a different kind, and it might not end well.
Hey, listen, the guys who skating against him are old too. Who knows? He might be surprised. Give him his chance.
True.
You never know.
Not like Ovi's lighting them up out there. So yeah, that might work. They are miking up Craig during the game.
Oh, that's cool.
I think he's available to us live, so that's going to be something. Yeah,
All right.
It's going to be a fun day.
All right, John, as always, thank you so much. I'm so glad to hear that everything worked out health-wise with you this summer, and I can't wait to see you at the arena this fall. You know I love my Capitals, so I'll see you down there soon.
We will see you there, and we got to get the Pizza Summit on the schedule, too, at some point before we get too much into fall.
All right, you let me know. Thanks, John.
All right, thanks, Bram.
All right, welcome back. This happened yesterday after we were taping, but before we actually went on air. The Robert Saleh firing from the New York Jets, and clear, right? I mean, is anyone really buying anything other than he wanted him to go? Because the owner is sitting here saying it was his decision and his decision only, and I don't believe that, right? Like, why would he not take anybody else before he did? Well, take the pulse of one particular person and find out. So no one's going to believe that. It's going to put Rodgers in a very funny spot because today's Wednesday, which means he has to talk to the media and he has to explain, that he had nothing to do with it, even though no one's going to believe that.
I think this one is more funny because I heard Schefter joined Greeny yesterday when the news broke, and it was the people filling in for Greeny, Hembo, and the guys. And Schefter said 3 separate times in about a 5-minute span, they were trying to turn the season around, and it could possibly be Aaron Rodgers' last season. He said it 3 times unprompted, which even made Hembo after the interview go, "Did you hear what he said there?" And here's my theory. I think Rodgers said, if you don't fire Saleh, I'm done at the end of the year. But if you do fire him, I could probably give you one more year after this with a either interim head coach or a new head coach afterwards. And that's where I'm landing here. I think Roger said, I'm done if you don't make a change here. I feel like I'm wasting my time.
It's funny. I heard a couple of things. I saw, what was it? Greeny, there's a headline on ESPN. Obviously, Greeny's a big Jets fan. And his line was that that Saleh was a bad coach, but the firing was unfair. And I'm like, those two things don't go together here. Okay, you admit that you don't think. I felt this way. I've been telling you this for a while. I'm like, I don't know about this guy. It doesn't read to me like he's got any kind of control here. But the firing's unfair. They're 2-3. Okay, now you could argue, did they have a real replacement on the staff? And I guess we're going to find out with the defensive coordinator if they do. But the fire, those two things are incongruent. You could think he's a bad coach, they win anyway, which wasn't happening. So if they weren't, why would you make the case that he's a bad coach and shouldn't be fired? So what are you just saying? You should have done it before the season, but now that you haven't, you needed to stick with it. So I don't really understand that theory. And then I saw another one. I think it was Dominic Foxworth or somebody was on, and he said something to the effect of that he was, laid the case that he was undermined, that the owner had done too much with the quarterback, and that the coach wasn't really empowered and didn't have we lived this, so we totally understand that. But that said, I look at that team and I go, no, he had every opportunity to win. He has a team that can win. And regardless of what the circumstances are around him, he is the head coach, even if it's only a name, but I believe it's more than that. And it's on him to make the team collectively play better. And especially when you have a roster like that, win. So I don't buy that either. When Shanahan was being undermined, okay, here, we understand this, all right? When that was happening, I don't think that they had a roster like this with a top 5 defense on it, and an all-world Hall of Fame quarterback on it, and good enough skill position players. In fact, some Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson among top 5 at their positions. No, Saleh had a full deck of cards. He didn't play them well. And you could sit there and say oh, well, he was being undermined. True, but he was being undermined with a full deck of cards, and he still couldn't win any pots. Come on, man. I think actually it's funny. I think they did the right thing. I think they should have done it in the preseason, but I think they before the season, but I think they did the right thing. At 2-3, you've got to try to salvage it, and it may go down and be a dumpster fire, but it sounds like it was happening anyway with him as the head coach, and you've got to change it now because they have a roster that can win. The Dolphins cannot this year. The Patriots cannot this year. It's a 2-team race. You've got to do something to try to fix it.
Here's the problem, though. It's not the defense's fault. It's been the offense. They've been god-awful. Rodgers threw 3 picks the other day against the Vikings. He was going to take away responsibilities from your boy Natty Hacks there, and then he got fired 5 minutes later. That was the literal report, that he was going to take his responsibilities away, and then he got fired. My problem here is that it's not like it was the defense's problem. It was the offense that was terrible. They're bottom 3rd in the league in every single category. And I also look at it like this. You and I talked about this for the last 3 weeks. If they just middle round 500, they could sneak into the playoffs. We didn't think they were going to win that division. But here it is. They lost to the Broncos at home in a rainy game, 10-9. Okay, close game. It's the NFL. Calm down, everybody. Then they lost to the Vikings, who are the NFL's best story. They're 5-0. Darnold's been really good. The defense has been insanely good. And I can't remember who their other loss was against. But that sits them at 2-3, right? They play the Bills on Monday night, and if they beat the Bills, they're on top of the division.
Correct.
That's where I don't really understand here is it wasn't the defense's problem. The offense needs to be better. And it's not like they were 0-5 and they lost to these terrible opponents. They actually lost an NFL game to the Broncos. And then for the Vikings game, it was a neutral site field against a really good team. I think that's where I've landed of. If you're going to fire him, wait till he's getting blown out by the Bills or something like that.
This goes way back, but this reminds me of Norv's last year where it happened later in the season, but they were 500 with a few games to go. And they had this, super team type roster because Dan had gotten Jeff George and Deion Sanders and Bruce Smith. And they were coming off a playoff year and there was all these expectations. And then he just fired Norv, even though they had every opportunity to still make the playoffs. And of course, it cratered the other way. So there's a little bit of that too. Just last thing real quick. Do it, guys. Come on. Bring Belichick back. You know Rodgers wants him because he wants accountability. You'll get it with him. This is full circle. And you don't think Belichick doesn't look at this and go, I'm going to stick it to the Patriots for a few years and do it with that team? Come on. Like, what, he wouldn't be open to doing it? Give me a break. He knows a winner when he sees it. He's got Rodgers in that defense. He can win with that. Woody, call Bill. You know you want to. Bill, you know you want to go do it to stick it to Kraft. Come on. Go win a Super Bowl in New York and like, stick it to the Patriots. You want to do your mic drop? Brady did it in Tampa. You get to do it with the Jets. Why wouldn't you do that? I would say that would one up Brady's last chapter with Tampa. Belichick winning with the Jets. Yeah,
for sure.
It'd be amazing. All right, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bram Show, ESPN 630, the Sports Capital.